Well, hey there everyone, and welcome back to Stuff in Excel. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to take a look at the many different ways that Excel provides you to navigate around your workbook and your worksheets. It's really amazing how many different ways you can get around it very efficiently within Excel, and I'm going to try to show you as many of them as I can. So let's just get into it. So before I actually get started showing you the different navigation tools that you can use within the Excel workbooks, let's first look at the data that we have that we're going to be working with in this example. Remember, you can always download this file by going down to the description for the video and clicking on the link. So this particular file has got three tabs. It's got a tab for sales, tab for employees, and a tab for stores. Now, sales shows us transaction date, number of units sold, sales price per unit, total sales, and the employee number that made this sale. Now, on the employees, we have the last name of each employee, the first name of each employee, and the employee number. And it also tells us what store they work in. Now, over here for the stores, we see the store number, which corresponds to the store number that they worked in the previous tab. Shows the region for that store and what state that store is in. So we've got that data, and out there we've got 26 stores. We have a total of 85 employees, and we've got 13,000 sales transactions. So how do we navigate around this spreadsheet? Well, the first thing we want to be able to do is to determine where we are in the spreadsheet. Now, one way we can do that, I can just click, and I'm going to just click anywhere on this screen. We'll just click right here, and if I look at the, do an intersection of the column, and I'm going to highlight that with a color. We'll highlight it in yellow, and let's say I go over to row 9, and I highlight that with a different color. Where these two intersect right here, that is going to be cell F9. So I know I'm in cell F9. However, there's an easier way for us to tell where we are. If we go up to the left-hand side of this spreadsheet, just above the column of the row number, we see a little box, and it tells us right there that's where we are. We're in cell F9. That's where my cursor is. If I put the cursor here, it's going to tell me I'm in cell F4. If I put the cursor over in here, it's going to tell me my cursor's in cell N15. So wherever my cursor is will be shown up here in this upper left box as to the location of the cursor. And that's going to be important to sort of know where we are in the spreadsheet. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all these colors. We'll get that out of there and get that out of there. We'll get these colors back to where they need to be. So the other nice thing about this box up here is I can type in a cell number, a cell identifier with a column and a row, and it will take my cursor to that. So if I type in D2 up here in the upper left, you can see that, and I hit enter, it's going to take me now to cell D2, and you can see where my cursor is. It's now in cell D2. If I typed in M20, it's going to take my cursor down here to column M, row 20. I could go all the way down to, if I wanted to, I could go see what is in cell D 805, and it'll take me down to that particular cell. And you can see it down here near the bottom of the screen. It is cell D and 805, and there it is. So this way to navigate around is going to be very, very helpful. Now, the next thing that we want to do is we want to figure out how to identify our ranges. Now, we all know our ranges. We can see them now. I've already done the range identifiers. I've already named all these ranges. And the question is, how would you know what those are? Well, if you click up here, and let's go back to the top of the screen. I'll show you how to do this in a minute. But let's say we go up here, and I want to check out the named ranges that are available in this workbook. Well, it's really easy. We go back to this little box up here in the upper left. that tells us where our cursor is. But if we click the little down arrow, it's going to list all of these named cell ranges. Okay, and I've already named those. I've got another video that shows you how to create the named ranges. Remember, if you are going to create named ranges, you should do that before you turn your data into a table. And that's something I'll mention again later. You notice I also have down here something called table employees and table stores. Now there's a reason for that. So if I click on any one of these named ranges, it'll take me. If I go to sales price, it's going to highlight the sales price column. You can see that. If I go back up here and I go to employee last name, it's going to take me to the tab employees, and it's going to highlight the last names column. If I go to region, it's going to take me over here to the stores tab, and it's going to highlight the regions that I've got, that region category. So by clicking on one of these named cell ranges, it will not only take me to that range no matter where it is in the workbook, but it will also highlight that range for me. Now I can do the same thing with tables. If I go down, I want to go see the employees table, I click on it and there's the employees table right there. And if no matter where I have a table in the workbook, if I name that table appropriately, then I can click underneath this particular drop-down window and it'll take me directly to that table. That can be a very, very handy navigation tool, particularly if you've got a large workbook with a lot of tables spread across the different worksheets. Now, one of the conventions I use, if I'm going to name a table, I generally will call it table, then underscore, and then whatever that table name is. Now, the reason I do that is because if I don't do that, then it's hard to tell a table name from a named data range name. And so if I put table in front of it, I know that it is a table. And it helps me. It also puts all my tables together in one area of my drop-down menu. So let's go back to the original tab and look at the next kind of navigation that we want to do. So we may want to navigate within this thing, and we may want to figure out, okay, how do I find out where my where the bottom is, where the right side is for this? So if I go click on if I go here and I want to say, okay, I want to find the bottom of my file, bottom of my data, I can use the page down key. I can use that and it takes me down a page at a time. And that's going to be very tedious, particularly in this case I got 13,000 names, right? The other thing I can do is I can go to the right if I want. If I do Alt, hit down the Alt button and page down, it's going to take me to the right, okay? Now if I hit, then if I want to go back to the left, I hit Alt, page up, and it takes me all the way back. Same thing if I do Alt page down, it just takes me down. Page up takes me up, right? But what if I want to go all the way to the bottom? Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control and the down arrow key. When I do that, it's going to take me down all the way to the bottom of my spreadsheet. Okay. Now, if I want to go back up, I hit Control and the up arrow key, and it does the same thing. If I hit Control and right, it'll take me to the far right side of my spreadsheet. And Control left takes me back to the far left of my spreadsheet. Now, I can also highlight these ranges. So if I hit Control Shift and down, it's not only going to take me to the bottom of the spreadsheet, but it'll also highlight that column. Now, if I happen to continue to hold down Control Shift and now I hit the right button, it'll go all the way over and it will highlight all the way to the right. So now I've gone all the way to the bottom, all the way to the right, and I've now highlighted everything in my particular data range. So there's a lot of ways we can get around this, right? So we've seen several different tools. Now, if I want to go back to home, back to the very beginning, all I hit is Control and Home, which is right next to the Page Up button, and it takes me right back to that particular location. So that's going to be really helpful to know as well. If I wanted to go to the bottom right corner of the data range, I simply hit Control End, and it takes me all the way to the bottom of this range. Okay, so Control Home takes me all the way back up to the top. Now, there's some other things we may want to do. Another way to do this, you may not want to use the keys of the keyboard. You may want to navigate this using just the cursor. So if I take I've got a cell highlighted here, and I just go ahead and highlight the bottom of that. Notice it changes from that sort of thick white plus sign to a little crosshatch arrow. If I double click that, it is going to take me all the way to the bottom. And there it goes, takes me all the way to the bottom. Now, if I go down to that bottom cell, it's in cell 13,000 or A13001. If I double click on the top of that, guess what it's going to do? You got it. It's going to take me right back to the top. Now, I can do the same thing with the right side. If I double click on the right edge of that box, it takes me all the way to the right. And if I click on the left edge of that box, it takes me all the way back to the left. So that's another way to get around, just using the cursor to click or not click. Now, if I hit Shift and double click on the bottom, it takes me down and highlights it. Okay. So again, if I want to go back to the top, I just double click on that. If I happen to be way at the bottom, let's go to the bottom, and I want to highlight the whole thing. I hit Shift and double click on the top, and it'll highlight it. I can do the same thing with the left and right there. If I hit Shift on the right edge and double click, it highlights that whole thing. And if I happen to be over here and I hit Shift double click on the left side, it highlights the row backwards. So again, ways we can use the mouse to navigate around the spreadsheet. Now, a couple of interesting things about this. If I have a blank row in here, let's just insert a blank row in at row 7. Let's go and insert a row. I'm going to turn off the magnifier for the moment. So I've now got a blank row. So let's say I'm up here at transaction date, and I hit my Control Shift down, and I want to highlight. You know, what's going to happen is it's going to stop when it gets to that blank row. So to get past that, I have to Control Shift down again, and then it'll go all the way to the bottom. Now, why does it do that? It does that because it's only highlighting the contiguous range of data, not the entire range of data. So if you've got a blank row, or by the way, if you've got a blank column, so let's stick a blank column in there. Wait a minute here, let's see if I want to go here, right click, insert a column. So now I've got a blank column between column B and C. If I'm in column A and I try to go over to the right, what it's going to do is it's going to stop when it gets to column C because it's a blank column. So with blank columns and blank rows, your navigation will stop when it hits a blank column or a blank row. Now, that's not the same thing as if you have a blank cell. So let's go take out the 49 units that are in cell B14. So if I take those out, and now I go up to the top, to the top of that in cell B1, and I hit my Control Shift down, it's going to stop again. Okay, so it stopped right there. Now, however, if I go to the top of this, and I hit Control Shift down for the transaction date, then Control Shift right, it's going to still highlight that, even though that 49 units is still missing. So it only is a problem if I've got a blank row or a blank column. So in the range you're trying to highlight, if there is a blank space, it's going to stop, and you're going to have to hit that again to continue going to the bottom. And it's not unusual that you'll have worksheets that have blank spaces in them. Now, one of the things we talk about when we talk about cleaning up the data is that we will try to fill in blank spaces with something. We don't like blank spaces and blank rows or columns in our spreadsheets. So let's talk about something else. What if we want to find something specific? Okay, so there's a way to do that, and that's you hit the Control F button, and that brings up your Find and Replace window. Now, this particular dialog box has got a Find tab, and it's got a Replace tab on it, you'll notice. And I can do either one. Now, I can actually go straight to the Replace tab if I hit Control H. Well, it's the same dialog box, it's just it's already goes straight to the Replace tab. I think it's just easier to remember Control F for find. Then if you want to also replace, you just click on the replace tab. But there's a box many of us never use, and that's the options box over here. Now the option box tells us we can look for something within this sheet, or we can look for something within the entire workbook. So if I wanted to find Florida in the workbook and hit that, it's not going to be in this particular tab, but if I hit it now, go to it, and it doesn't find that. So let's see if it finds Alabama. I'm going to look for it in the entire workbook, and sure enough, there is an Alabama over here in my store. So apparently we don't have any stores in, in Florida in this particular workbook. So I can use Control F or Control H. I think it's easier just to remember Control F. Okay, now F5 is another one I can use. So if I hit F5, it's going to bring up this particular dialog box. And it's my go-to box, and I'm going to click on Special. Okay, now when I click on Special, it's going to do some things for me. It gives me some different options. So for example, if I wanted to find everywhere in this spreadsheet where there was a formula, I could click on Formulas, and it's going to find that for me. Okay. And I click on that, and it's going to, says no cells were found. Why not? Well, there's no cells in here that have a formula. So let's say we wanted a formula in my total sales column, and that's going to be my units sold times the sales price per unit. I can hit that. Now what I can do, I can click there, and I can double click, and it's going to copy that all the way down. Now if I do my F5, and I go to Special, and I click for Formulas, it's going to highlight that entire range. So let's show you again. F5, Special, Formulas, it highlights the entire range. Now let's say that instead of 6,084.10, I've got 6084.1. Okay, I typed that in. Notice now, if I go up and look, my cell D8 is a formula. But if I go up to cell D7, see I'm now in cell D7, that's not a formula, it's a number. So now when I do my F5, and I go to Special, and click on Formulas, and click OK, it's going to highlight everything except for the cell where there's just a number and not a formula. So that's going to be important. Now, why didn't it highlight this? That's because it's the first cell in the range. That's why I didn't highlight it. But this one is not highlighted at all because it's not a formula. It's just a number. Now, I'd probably want to take that, and I would want to turn that back into a formula, and I just did that. So I can do the same thing with looking for blanks. So for example, let's say that 49 is missing again, and I want to do a search for any cells that are blank in this workbook. Well, I can hit my F5, I can go to Special, I can hit Blanks, hit OK, and it's going to go find that cell. There it is. It found that cell right there, and it's blank. And it tells me, hey, I got to do something with that. So using the F5 Go to Special box is going to be very, very helpful for you. So let me put this back in there so that now is back where it needs to be. Now the next thing we can do is we can create a filter. If I click in one of these columns, actually in any cell, I can right click, I can go down to filters in that drop down menu, and I can filter by the cell's value. Now so I can do that, and it's going to create. Now when I click that, it's going to create a filter button for that column. But notice it also creates a filter button for every single other column as well. I can go through and do those filters for every single one of my columns. Now, it does make a lot of sense to have filters on this particular table or particular range of data, but it would make sense in the others. So I can go in and add those filters very easily, which is another way to shrink down my data and to navigate around very well. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is navigating our tabs in our worksheet. So within a Excel workbook, you have these different tabs, and if you had 20 or 30 tabs, these two buttons right here in the lower left would be highlighted, and those two buttons you could go back and forth left and right with them. But in this case, we only have 3 tabs, so they're not highlighted. But what you can do with this is, I'm going to turn that off again. If I go down and put my cursor between that left and right arrow and right-click, it brings up a window that allows me to see all of the tabs that I have in this workbook. And all I have to do to go to one of those tabs is hit the tab, let's say Employees, and hit OK, and it automatically will take me there. If I had 20 or 30 tabs and I was trying to navigate back and forth, this would be a real helpful tool for me. Now, the last thing I want to show you is a navigation tool that is in Windows 365, but is not currently in Microsoft Excel 2021, but it is going to be in Excel 365. So let's go look at that particular tool. So I am now in Microsoft Excel 365. Now, there's a tool in here called the navigation pane that's a really cool tool. So if I go up to View, and let's see if this will work here. I'm going to go up to the View, and I'm going to click on that. And right here, right after the new window and the freeze panes, I've got this new thing called navigation pane. When I click on this, it's going to open up a pane over on the right-hand side of my screen. And you'll see it lists here all of the different information that I've got. So what it's showing me here is I've got this sales tab, and on the sales tab I've got some information. I've got there's a range of data. There's a transaction date, units sold, sales price. It's showing me all my named ranges, right? Total sales and employee number. If I go to employees, it's going to show me the table overall. It takes me to the range of data for employee's last name, employee first name, employee number, and store number. For stores, it does the same thing. Now, what's nice is I can now go back and forth to all these different things. I can go to, if I wanted to look at tables for employees, I could look at that. If I wanted to highlight employee last name, I could see that. If I wanted to go to table for stores, I could do that. So this navigation pane allows me to navigate all around my workbook. If I had any charts in here, it would highlight those, any visualizations, and I could go straight to that visualization as well. So this is a tool I hope eventually will end up in Microsoft Office for desktop, but right now it is available, navigation pane, in Windows Excel 365, and that's going to be really, really helpful for you, I believe. So that's what we have for navigating around your workbook. I hope that was really helpful to you. If so, remember to subscribe to the channel. Click that notification button so that as we issue new videos, you will see it. And we'll see you real soon right here on Stuff in Excel.